This afternoon the Solent shoreline was packed deep with spectators braving the conditions to witness the greatest assortment of offshore yacht racing hardware ever assembled. The special 50th edition of the Royal Ocean Racing Club's Rolex Fastnet Race set sail with 430 yachts, up from the previous record of 388 that took the last pre-COVID race in 2019. While pundits were comparing the wind this afternoon to that of the last Rolex Fastnet race in 2021, in fact it was gustier, and conditions were otherwise quite different, with a densely overcast sky, drizzle that built to rain, and enough mist to obscure the mainland. What was consistent was the heinous washing machine seastate that competitors encountered at the western exit of the Solent at Hurst Narrows, as they passed the Isle of Wight's most famous landmark, the Needles and beyond. As usual, this built increasingly with the ebb tide, especially affecting the smaller yachts. Mercifully, the measures that the RORC introduced this year to help minimize the risk of collisions, including course marshals and increasing the time between starts to 15 minutes. There were no pre-race collisions, as there were 2 years ago. Another rule was introduced this year to dissuade boats from being over early. Those OCS 30 seconds out from the line would incur a mandatory 2-hour penalty instead of having to turn back into the next group of starters to recross the line. This caught out a few boats, including a significant number in the third start for the Class 40s, when the tide was properly beginning to ebb off around the Royal Yacht Squadron line. As usual, the 232-metre-long Ultim trimarans, Bank Populaire 11, and SVL Lazatig, and Eric Meris Mod 70, Zulu, plus the lead flying Imokas created the most dramatic spectacle as, with sheets slightly cracked, they literally flew upwind in the brisk conditions. Prior to the start, Charlie Dalen, the outright Rolex Fastnet Race Imoka class winner in 2021, back now with his brand new boat Massif, commented, "We are really pleased to be here after just 4 days of sailing. The team did an amazing job to get the boat ready in such a short period of time. Obviously the boat is not up to its potential, but that is why we are here, to keep working and testing. It will be a pretty windy course, especially the first 8 to 10 hours. The wind should ease fairly rapidly after the start point, but until then it will pretty full on. There will be a lot of maneuvers and sail changes, even on the way back from the Fastnet. We will have less breeze just before we reach the Irish coast for a while, and perhaps once we get back into the channel, from Land Ends to Cherbourg, but the forecasts are a bit different now. It is going to be an intense race." Despite this, by the time Massif exited the Solent, she was leading the Imoka class alongside Jeremy Bayou's Cheryl, while British Hope's Pip Hare and Nick Bubb, on the former's Medallia, also newly relaunched, had to return to the Solent briefly to fix a problem with her furler. This year the Imoka fleet split between going south or following Dalen on via the North Channel. At 1800 this evening, Massif was leading the Imokas past Portland Bill with Britain's Sam Davies on board Initiative's Coeurs, holding third in the 29-boat fleet. Meanwhile in Ultims, Bank Populaire disappeared off to the Cotentin Peninsula, which she reached in just 5 hours, and tacked, preparing to pass to the south of the Casquette TSS exclusion zone, as SVL Lazatig was lining up to stay north of it. In the IRC fleet, the highest-rated yacht, American, Brian Earhart's Lucky, X-Line Honours winner Rambler 88, had done well in the Solent, and despite starting some 30 minutes behind, was already halfway up the Imoka fleet, as she prepared to tackle Hurst Narrows. At 1800 she was alongside the lead Imoka, but sailing a knot slower. Currently 2 Italian teams are leading the annual Class 40 championship, and one, Ambrogio Beccaria's, Alla Grande Pirelli, had already pulled out a substantial lead by the time the 22 Class 40s exited the Solent. Like the Imokas, there was an equal divide between the Class 40s leaving the Shingles Bank to port or to starboard, with Alla Grande Pirelli heading south before tacking west. At 1800 she had just passed St. Albans Head. The other Italian Class 40, Alberto Bona's Mach 40.5, IBSA, was in 8th. IBSA recently won the Class Les Sables Hortolez Sables race, in which she managed to set a phenomenal Class 40, 24-hour record of 430 miles, sailing downwind in 25 to 30 knots. Bona, who sailed the last Rolex Fastnet race as navigator on board the former line Honours winner Storm Vogel, said before the start, "For us the conditions are not good. We will be in a very difficult position. The first 16 to 18 hours will be more survival than sailing because we are really flat, with a lot of volume in the bow, so going upwind in a strong and choppy sea, wind against tide, is not our favorite condition. But the boat is great, so we are aiming to survive the first 24 hours, and then we can switch to race mode. There are many other competitive Class 40s. It will be a tough battle for everyone." This evening IRC 0 was being led on the water by a Botten Partners trio of designs as they approached Portland Bill, with Jean-Pierre Bargens the 65 feet, Spirit of Lorena, ahead of Stefan Gentjes, 56 black pair, L and Max Klinks 52, Caro, the leader under IRC corrected time. Meanwhile IRC 1 was up with the Class 40s, the leaders just passing St. Albans Head. Making up for the start line collision last year that had put them out of that race, the Fournier family's J133 Pintia was leading IRC 1, both on the water and under IRC corrected time. Under IRC, she was ahead of Dr. Herve Bennick's First 40, Iritis, and Ed Bell's JPK 1080, Dawn Treader, the other party involved in Pinch's 2021 collision. These three were all closest to St. Albans Point with the Rolex Fastnet Race's defending champion, Tom Neen's JPK 1180, Sunrise, to their southwest, alongside another previous class winner, French veteran Jacques Peltier's Milan 41, L'Ange de Milan. Several contenders including Andrew and Sam Hall's Lombard 46, Pata Negra, had tacked off south, mid-channel. Prior to the start, Will Taylor-Jones commented, "It could be our weather. It could be worse, but it could also be quite brutal. We have a relatively young crew that has only sailed the boat for a couple of seasons, and we haven't actually had this type of weather for any length of time, so it will be a challenge for us." As to the weather, Taylor-Jones was expecting to encounter holes in the breeze crossing the Celtic Sea, but stronger wind for the way home. "But I think as ever the race will be won or lost on the way out. But there is a lot of windward work, so we can't complain, because Sunstone is good in that. The boat will look after us. We are mindful she is an old lady now, but I think she might still be stronger than the crew." Meanwhile, the biggest class in the fleet, IRC two-handed, is being led by Archambault 40 RC, Vita, of Martin Hingst, racing in IRC 1. The conditions have taken their toll on the fleet, with a number of retirements, or boats that are moored waiting for tonight's big conditions to pass. These include past winner and race veteran Jerry Trentiso's Sydney 43, Long Courier, with mast issues. Meanwhile, from a mooring off Cowes, the oldest boat in the race, the magnificent 19035 Moonbeam, skipper, Round the World racer Jacques Carras reported, "We shall be racing again early tomorrow morning. We didn't want to break the pretty old ship, Moonbeam.